This is an On the Ice and Behind the Benches podcast on the Sports for Beginners podcast feed.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Blue Jays, Rockies. 3-game series. This is Blue Jays game recap. I am Thomas McGregor. Lights up. Let's go, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports from the fans' perspective. Here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. Well. So the night owl action begins. The Blue Jays and the Rockies, our topic of conversation. Now, before we get in to the Rockies and the Blue Jays game one of this 3-game series set, which began Monday night at 8:40 p.m. Eastern time, and of course, the next game is also an 8:40 p.m. Eastern time start, 7:40 p.m. Central time start. It is a 6:40 p.m. Mountain time start, a 5:40 p.m. Pacific time start, a 1:40 a.m. start in London, and a 2:40 a.m. start in Paris. Those, of course, are for tonight's game, and then, of course, Game 1 of this 3-game series, which we are recapping ahead of Game 2. The Rockies are coming off series with the Pirates and the Orioles. No, that does not make sense. It looks like I'm playing dumb. It was the Royals who had played 3 games with the Blue Jays, and then, of course, the Rockies played their own little series. They played their own little series of games before they played the Blue Jays in the Pittsburgh Pirates, taking 2 out of 3 against the Pirates, with the Pirates taking 1 out of 3. The final score, of course, 9-5. Meanwhile, for the Blue Jays, they wrapped up a series with the Kansas City Royals, in which the Royals take series. The Blue Jays took 1 out of 3 in that series, with the victory against the Royals on Saturday and a loss to the Royals on Sunday, and the opener Friday night, 3-9 in favor of the Kansas City Royals. The Kansas City Royals would go into 10 innings on Sunday and take it 7-4 over the Blue Jays. Now, those were those series. The Pirates are currently facing the San Francisco Giants right now. The Blue Jays are facing the Colorado Rockies. And who is Kansas City's next opponent, you ask? Well, let's dive into that just before we dive in to Game 1's breakdown and take our first time out. They are in a series battle with Toronto Blue Jays AL East opponent, the Boston Red Sox, through 3 innings of play as of today, August 2025. By the time we recap those scores on Game 2, we will be talking about the third and final game on Wednesday, August 2025, ahead of game number 3 of this final series, I should say series, with the Rockies. The managers are, as noted, for the Blue Jay fans. John Schneider is on the hill for the Blue Jays managers. And after firing their manager against the Blue Jays, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who will talk about it, It was right. For the Blue Jays and the Rockies, the first game's matchup looked a little something like this. We had Eric Lauer on the mound for the Blue Jays and Tanner Gordon on the mound for the Colorado Rockies. The Blue Jays were current record of 65-48. But how did it all pan out? Well, let's take a look at the lineup card that started this series. Let's take a look at the lineup card in defensive alignment form. For the Blue Jays and their lineup, it would be Nathan Lukes in the right side of Coors Field, which is the, of course, ballpark for the Colorado Rockies. Out in left field, we'd have Joey Luperfido on the left side of the field. And in center field, welcome back Dalton Varsho. That's right, Dalton Varsho was back in the lineup, and he plays in center field. Your left field and center fielders batting in the sixth, eighth, and of course your right fielder led things off, batting first. Your infield consisted of Alejandro Kirk, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at first base. Catching was Alejandro Kirk. He caught Eric Lauer. Ernie Clement played second base. Our designated hitter was Ty France. More on him a little later. We had Addison Barger play third base. Our shortstop was Bo Bichette. And who was there anyone else we have to look at? No, I think we pretty much got them. Addison Barger, third base. Second base, of course, was Ernie Clement. Joey Luperfido was designated for left field. In right was Nathan Lukes. We had Dalton Varsho in center field. Alejandro Kirk was catching. And Ty France was your designated hitter for the Blue Jays. Warren's lineup with the Rockies as the interim manager lines up like this. You have Tyler Freeman leading things off in the designated hitter spot. At shortstop, we have Ezekiel Tuvar, or E.T. for short. No, not like E.T. the movie, in case you're comparing it to E.T. the movie. Just E.T. for the short form, in case I can't say the names right. He's at shortstop. Your catcher was Hunter Goodman. He was leading things off in the catching spot, batting third. In left field, we had Jordan Beck. Right field was Mickey Moniak. Good to hear that guy's name. I loved me some Mickey Moniak. That was a good one to look at. We have him at right field. And in center field, let's see, where's center field? Who do we have in center field for this team? Who do we have? We have left field, designated hitter. Who was that center field? Oh, that was Brenton Doyle in center field. And Warming was your first baseman alongside Thero Estrada, or T. Estrada, who was in second base. As mentioned, the shortstop was Ezekiel Tuvar, if I'm saying that right. I'll try to go with ET for short. And who else are we missing here? Who else are we missing? We got first, second, short. We need to find out who that third baseman was. Who was that third base? Well, that was Orlando Arcia, wearing number 11, and he was batting ninth. So Hunter Goodman catches the line for Tanner Gordon. He was a part of that. Thero Estrada, or T. Estrada, was at second base. Braxton, full forward. I mixed up the lineup. I think I was talking about game two's lineup, but nevertheless, he was the designated hitter for that game. Brenton Doyle was in at center field. Tyler Freeman is in right field. E.T. is, of course, the shortstop for this game. Hunter Goodman, catcher. In left field is Jordan Beck. The first baseman is Warming B. In the sixth place spot and playing center field is Brenton Doyle. T. Estrada is the second baseman, your designated hitter. Braxton, full forward. And the third baseman was Kyle Farmer. in game one. So I may have mixed up the Rockies lineup for game two, but we'll go over those lineups if there's time to go over them as that game is getting ready to get going. And you know what? How about we take a time out here on Blue Jays game recap to talk about the Rockies and the Blue Jays game one breakdown. That's coming up next when Blue Jays game recap continues. The lineups are in for this match. We'll talk about the game when Blue Jays game recap on the ice and behind the benches and sports for beginners continues. Stay with us.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for the Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for the Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners. Welcome back, Blue Jay fans. Welcome back, Rocky fans, to Blue Jays game recap. I am your host, Thomas McGregor. Rockies, Blue Jays. This is just game one of a three-game series, which wraps up Wednesday. Boy, was it ever one to hit the pillowcase if you're a Rocky fan. That's right, Blue Jays fans. This one was worth staying up, but if you're a Rockies fan on the East Coast, this one was worth not watching. The Rockies lose to the Toronto Blue Jays 15-1. But let's see if we can give you some signs of encouragement as the show goes on. Here we go with our line score to kick us off. Here we go. It is the Blue Jays and the Rockies meeting for the first time this season in Colorado. And of course, Colorado being a National League team, this will be the only meeting of the season, I believe, between the two teams. 3 games in Colorado. We will see where the rest of the season goes. But the line score pictures the Blue Jays 25 hits to 8 over the Rockies, in which the Rockies commit 1 error on just 15 runs for the Blue Jays, who commit no errors in this game. The Rockies, however, despite the 8 hits and the error given up, they have 1 run, so they would lose by only 14 runs. Still pretty big deficit by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of good things to say about the Blue Jays and the Blue Jays team in general. We'll get to our scoring line in just a little bit, but let's dive in now that we've got the scoring line out of the way. Let's dive into the team comparisons. Again, 3 homers for the Blue Jays to compare to their 25 hits to the 8 hits for the Rockies. No homers there. They touched base 9 times, left 6 men on, committed 1 error. The Blue Jays left 11 men on base, touched base 40 times last night, and the Rockies allowed just 15 hits from the Blue Jays. 15 runs, 25 of those hits were allowed by the Rockies. Of course, the Blue Jays, just 8 hits allowed by the Rockies hitters, 1 run allowed, and then, of course, nothing else to show for other than touching base 9 times. We'll get to the players of the game momentarily. We'll get to the players of the game momentarily, like I said, and we will make sure to get everything out of the way. The Blue Jays and Rockies getting ready to get set for game 2 of the series. We'll set you up for that game before the show is up. Reminder of who now has won the game as the teams enter this game at 60-48 for the Blue Jays and 30-82 for the Rockies heading into game 2 of the series. That is, of course, the record for the Rockies, 30-82 heading into this game. They are currently 5th in the National League West, which is known as dead last in the National League West Division. Last place versus first place was the topic of conversation for this game. There is some talk about Ty France that I want to get to through the trade deadline, but we're going to talk about that if there is time. The winning pitcher, of course, Eric Lauer, his record 7-2 now. Tanner Gordon, his record 2-4. He's the losing pitcher. ERA finish of 6.59. We have Eric Lauer finishing with an ERA of 2.59. And of course, the Blue Jays win in outfielding fashion. All right, we've gone through the scoring summary of the line scores. Let's go through the actual summary and detail how the Blue Jays tacked on runs, how the Rockies found a way to cut into the lead, but only able to get 1 run, and that was the ball game. As they would win by 6 runs over the Rockies, the Blue Jays would take care of business. Bo Bichette gets things started with a single on a ground ball to the right fielder, Tyler Freeman. Nathan Lukes will score 1-0 Blue Jays. They have a 1-run lead. It's 1-0 Blue Jays over the Rockies. Top of the second inning, Davis Schneider back at the plate for his first collection. He gets it in. Davis Schneider, of course, his first at bats. He gets a single in on a line drive to Jordan Beck, the left fielder. Ernie Clement will score. It's 2-0 Jays, a 2-run lead for the Blue Jays over the Rockies. Blue Jays 2, Rockies 0. We go to the top of the 3rd inning, and one of, if not the biggest top of the 3rd innings we've had so far this season for the Toronto Blue Jays. They had 2 big innings, one in the 7th. We'll get there momentarily, but in the top of the 7th, the Blue Jays, I should say top of the 3rd, tack on not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not even 5, but 7 runs, and they all come on the start of Dalton Varshaw's 9th home run of the season in a fly ball to right center field. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Barger, and of course, Dalton Varshaw score. It's now 5-0 Blue Jays over the Rockies, and here we go. The Rockies are down by a 5-run lead. Can they keep it to just 5 runs? Well, Joey Luperfido says, not on my watch. We've got a lead. Let's continue to get the lead strong. He singles on a fly ball to center field. Brenton Doyle, the center fielder. Of course, Ernie Clement will score on the plate. And now it's a 5-run lead turned into a 6-run lead. Still in the inning, Davis Schneider. 3 doubles on the season already. Here's number 4. It's a sharp fly ball to left fielder Jordan Beck. Joey Luperfido will score. Davis Schneider out at 3rd on a throw by Jordan Beck. Great throw, by the way. I was watching that, and I'm sure most of us watched it. Great throw, by the way, Jordan Beck. Of course, Hunter Goodman throw to 3rd base. Kyle Farmer, 2 outs. And the Blue Jays, despite Davis Schneider doubling and Joey Luperfido scoring, it's now a 7-run ball game for the Blue Jays. Joey Luperfido was sent home by Davis Schneider, but Davis was out stretching for a triple. He would get a double, but also would get a out call at third base. Would the Blue Jays challenge? No, they would not challenge the call, and therefore the Blue Jays would be up 7 runs. But later in the inning, just before you think it's even over, Bo Bichette has 13 homers already on the season. Will he have 14 tonight? Yes, he will. And he and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., alongside the guy that scores with him, Nathan Lukes, tally the Blue Jays run from 7 Blue Jays to Rockies 0 to now 9-0 Blue Jays. 9 runs for the Blue Jays. It's a 9-run lead over the Rockies. Bottom of the 5th we go, and it is E.T. or Ezekiel Tovar, if I'm saying that right. I'll go with E.T. He singles on a sharp line drive into Joey Luperfito, the left fielder. Tyler Freeman will score, and what was a 9-run lead has now become an 8-run lead for the Blue Jays. It is 9-1 in favor of the Rockies. They have 1 run on the board, but the Blue Jays still lead by 8 runs. How about Nathan Lukes? Take that run back. He would take that run back, as it's now 10-1 in favor of the Blue Jays, with Ernie Clement scoring and Joey Luperfito going to third base. Joey Luperfito will go to third base. Ernie Clement will score. It's now 10-1 Blue Jays. Bo Bichette back at the dish, still in the inning. The Blue Jays have a 10-1 lead. He's already got 14 this season right now with 1 homer on the night. Will he make it 2? And, well, that's pretty much a question to be answered right now, because we've got the answer for you. A fly ball right into center field. Nathan Lukes and Joey Luperfito, they score, as well as Bo Bichette. It's a 3-run shot, and the Blue Jays are out in front 13-1. So you took a 9-run lead to an 8-run lead, with it being 9-1, and you then saw a 10-1 lead for the Blue Jays, which means the 9-run lead is back. You tally up the score sheet and you look at it and you go, well, the Blue Jays just added 31, so how many runs are they down now? Oh, well, that looks to be a 11-1 lead. That looks to be an 11-1 lead, but let's just double check. No, it is a 12-run lead for the Blue Jays. Wow, okay. So the Blue Jays really bearing on 12 runs. They have a 12-run lead, still in the inning. Dalton Varsho says, anything you could do, Bo, I could do. And he singles on a ground ball into center field. Brenton Doyle on the play. Addison Barger will score. Alejandro Kirk goes to second base at this point. Dalton Varsho is holded to a first base. Top of the 9th inning. That would end the game's top half of the 7th inning for the Blue Jays, as they would finish the game with a 14-1 lead over the Colorado Rockies going into the top of the 9th inning. Ernie Clement doubles, a ground rule double for him. That's actually his 22nd ground rule double in the 9th inning. It's a fly ball to left center field. Ty France will score. Miles Straw will go to third base. And the Blue Jays have finished the Rockies off with a final run tally score of, if you look at our score line, a total of 15 runs to 1 over the Rockies, which would mean a 14-run lead. So no, they didn't have 15 runs, which means they would be down by at least a 15-run lead if it was 15-1. They did lose 15-1, but the run lead was actually 14 when it finished. So the Rockies lose by 14. That could have easily been a 15-run lead had the Blue Jays scored 16 before the ball game finished. Heck, it could have even been close if the Rockies started scoring and the Blue Jays took their foot off the gas pedal. You never know. We'll see what tonight's matchup has in store. But how's about another break in the action? And when we come back, we'll talk about Ty France, the trade deadline deals the Blue Jays made. We'll get you ready for Game 2 of this 3-game series and provide you an update on what's happening sports for beginners aside while the Blue Jays get ready for road series on Blue Jays game recap here on the ice and behind the benches for the remainder of the season. That and more still to come. Stay with us.
Looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams? Listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map. I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Blue Jays Rockies series continues tonight at 8:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:40 p.m. Central Time, and of course 6:40 p.m. Mountain Time, 5:40 p.m. Pacific Time. It is, of course, the first game of this Blue Jays game recap. It is now time to talk some trade deadline news. We have covered the game. We'll get back into the game in just moments. But while we are talking about the Toronto Blue Jays, I'll get into the Rockies if I feel the need to talk about their deals. We'll get into that momentarily. But of course, you've got General Manager Ross Atkins making moves, some to be very questionable, like Shane Bieber's deal was pretty interesting. It is also probably a big risk, as Atkins pointed out, with Shane Bieber being a part of the team. Morel Kelly, Mike Soroka, Steven Matz, Zach Littell were also traded, but Bieber likely had the greatest upside of any starting pitcher traded MLB wide, as the likes of Sandy Alcantara, Eduardo Cabrera, Zach Gallen stayed put, and of course, for good reasons, I'm sure. Those people I just mentioned, if I pronounced the names wrong, I hope I got that right. Dominguez, of course, traded during Orioles and Blue Jays series. They were traded. Jeff Hoffman, Brendan Little, Yariel Rodriguez were with Dominguez, who are Barland was another one that got a part of it. He got traded as well to the Blue Jays. He was a part of it. Varland, he got traded to it. There's a lot of deals that went down, including one that I wasn't too excited about it, guys, but let's talk about it. It was the fact that we were saying bye to a guy in Will Wagner. And don't get me wrong, Will Wagner had his ups and downs in this series with everyone who talked bad about Will Wagner. But I still thought Will Wagner had better opportunity with the Blue Jays than any other team. I still thought he had it. But in the end, it is a business, and you have to respect the fact of the teams trying to make themselves better if they have postseason aspirations. Maybe Will Wagner is not in that fold. Am I okay with the fact that he's out? No. Do I like what's transpired after it? Yes. Because let's be real, everyone. Let's be real. These players are here to do a job, and that's entertain us. And they're here also to do their job and try to bring the World Series to Toronto. Now, I would have loved to see Will Wagner a part of Toronto for the duration of the postseason, but that does not seem to be the case. So you know what? All power to you, Ross Atkins. This seems to be working, but let's not get crazy, Blue Jays fans. Let's not get traded. Let's not get crazy. I should say, yeah, let's not get crazy. And I believe the trade was Varlan for Will Wagner, but I'll just be real cautious of that. I believe it was Brendan Venezuela was acquired by the Blue Jays in exchange for Will Wagner. So it was Venezuela who was a part of that, but there was a lot of trades that went down. Good and some, well, we'll have to see. Let's get back to the game of conversation as we get ready for game 2 of this series. Of course, that will be Jose Barrios taking on, of course, the likelihood of, I believe it is Anthony Molina who is supposed to get the start. That's going to be a fun game to get to when we get to that recap. We said that the player of the game was around the corner and coming up, but just for the fun of it, as we get to our top performers and the player of the game, as well as what's to expect for the duration of the last couple of points in this program, let's take a look at how the AL division was doing when it came to last night's games. Baltimore lost to the Philadelphia Phillies. Their record going into Tuesday's matchup for the Orioles, 51-62. They lose 13-3. Ouch. That was a tough one. The Tigers tied at 66 wins, 48 losses for the Blue Jays in terms of wild cards as they beat the Minnesota Twins 6-3. So they are fighting for good against the Blue Jays. And the Astros also picked up a win to try and keep pace with the Blue Jays 8-2. Their record 63-50 heading into Tuesday's game. 55-56, the record for the Miami Marlins, who swept the Yankees coming into this series. Thank you, Marlins, for that. We appreciate that. 8-2. The final score for the Astros, they are 63-50 going into Tuesday's matchup against the Marlins. The Red Sox on the American League East side beat the Kansas City Royals 56-57. That's the record for them right now. The Boston Red Sox are 63-51 with an 8-5 victory over the Kansas City Royals. The New York Yankees lose 8-5 as well over the Texas Rangers. The Tampa Bay Rays lose to the Angels. The Tampa Bay Rays lose to the Angels. Let me start again. 55-59 is the record for them by a 5-1 victory over the Angels, with the Angels taking it 5-1. Their record 8 losses and 55 wins heading into this series. And of course, our final score for the American League East, 15-1 over the Rockies for the Blue Jays. The Orioles, the only team with the Yankees, and of course, the Tampa Bay Rays, who lost in the American League East. We'll check in on how those games are going, I'm sure, in game 2 of this series, which is currently underway as we speak to you. We'll get to the starting lineups for this matchup momentarily. If you missed it earlier, Lauer gets the win. He is 7-2 on the season. Gordon is the loser. He gets 2-4 record. And let's dive in now that we have both teams scoring talked about. Let's dive in to how both pitchers did before we get to our player of the game. And I promise we'll get to the player of the game before the next break, the last break of the program, essentially. We'll get to that, I promise you. Tanner Gordon coming into this game hoping to avoid going 2 for 4, not the case obviously. Goes 2 2/3 inning, allowing 11 hits, 7 runs, each earned. One of them was a homer, striking out one Blue Jay hitter. 2 strikeouts for the pitcher that came after Rawlinson, who pitched 3 1/3 of an inning, allowing 4 hits, 2 runs, walked a batter, and of course gave up a home run, just like Tanner Gordon. You had Palmaquist, if I'm saying that right. I don't know who these first names are, but you had these guys leading the charge from here on out. He goes an inning and a third, 7 hits, 5 runs allowed, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, a homer allowed. Seems like no matter where you look, the only guy that never gave up a homer was Darnell. It is Ryan Rollison that started things up. He goes 3 1/3 inning. So Dugan Darnell, there it is, Dugan Darnell would finish things off, going an inning and 2/3, allowing just 3 hits, 1 run, which was earned, but striking out 2 Blue Jays. Eric Lauer would go 6 complete innings, striking out 4, walking 1 batter, giving up just 1 run, 1 earned run, and allowing 7 hits, but none of them, of course, were home runs. So he would stay in the game until the first run got scored by the Rockies. But after that, no other runs were scored except a walk from Mason Fluharty, who went 2 innings, did not strike out a batter, did not give up a homer, walked a batter. So Mason Fluharty did not give up any sort of runs or hits. Braden Fisher struck out 3 of the Rockies, gave up just 1 hit, and went a complete inning. All in total, the Blue Jays struck out 7 Rockies, walked 2 Rocky hitters, gave up 1 run, which was earned. Those, of course, to Eric Lauer, and 8 hits were given up. 1 from Fisher's pitching, and then, of course, 7 from Eric Lauer, who was dealing until the hits came. So the Blue Jays do take care of business, and they do find a way out of this one. Will they find a way against the Rockies in tonight's competition with Barrios on the mound for the Blue Jays, and of course Molina on the hill for the Rockies? We'll see. For now, let's take another break. And from those making both our On the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners stations days brighter, just like yours, one song at a time. Here's a word on Sports for Beginners from Sienna T Radio. The player of the game, our American League standings update coming into Tuesday's matchups, and a look at what's to come on Tuesday's schedule, plus Game 3's finish line of pitchers for the Blue Jays and the Rockies, and the special announcement for Sports for Beginners fans. That is next. Stay with us.
What a busy traffic on this Friday evening. I am almost stuck in this traffic for the last 40 minutes. And there is no way, I think, for me to get to the show. The Sienna T Radio Song Bank, which is going to start very shortly. It's one of my favorite shows. And my, what a way to wind down for the weekend. Perfect 2 hours of fun-filled music. And she has so many great features. Sound of Music, Undercover, Foreign Exchange, Name That Tune, and the big wheel that she spins for Who's That or Where Are We? We cannot forget about the international stage. I have never come across such a great show in my life. I think I will have to press hard on my accelerator and go as fast as I can to get home in time. Wow! Wow! Look! I made it! I am almost there! Sienna T. Reed, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Ready, set, go. Blue Jays, Rockies. Player of the game coming up on Game 1's breakdown in just a few minutes. Just a recap of the winning pitcher. That is, of course, Eric Lauer. Before we left, we were talking about Eric Lauer and Tanner Gordon's records. And of course, we mentioned that we get into the player of the game. We're going to get into that just before we wrap up this show. Of course, the attendance record's coming up in moments. But as it stands, as of right now, the Blue Jays' AL East opponents have one shot their opponents that they have played as games are going final on this Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. We'll get into those games on that show's recap coming your way on both platforms right after this. Game goes final on your platform that you are streaming, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or wherever it is being streamed. Even on the Sports for Beginners YouTube channel, Weekly in Sports with Scott, we have it for you. Just want to extend a congratulations out to our host, Sienna T. Radio, for her incredible accomplishments. And I love listening into her radio station, especially hearing when host of Sports for Beginners has on every Saturday, The Melting Pot, as part of Sienna T Radio's Saturday Action. Don't forget to catch every Saturday morning on the East Coast from 11 to noon, I believe. It is The Melting Pot with Nick Blazewicz on the air. That is a show destined for greatness and a show always available every Saturday. Link to the show, of course, will be provided in the show notes if you want interest in that when you tune in to this show, probably on Saturday. If you tune into it weekly, please note that when the show is live, to go to Sienna T Radio's official website on WordPress.com, I believe, and click listen live. Once again, it starts at 11:30 in the morning on the East Coast. 12:30 noon is how long the show runs for. All right, back to the game. So 15-1, the Blue Jays win. The record for Tanner Gordon is 2-4. The record for Eric Lauer, the winning pitcher, which is the Blue Jays pitcher win, 7-2. Entering this game, Eric Lauer was 6-2, hoping to advance to 7-2. Mission accomplished. Tanner Gordon, he was hoping to improve from 2-3 to 3-3, which means he would have tied his record at 3-3 rather than where it ended up going into tonight's matchup and his next start, which is meaning he's now 2-4 in record. What will his next pitching matchup be with the Rockies? Will he even see another match with the Rockies as his team? That's in the question for us Rocky fans to talk about. We'll get to my thoughts just before we wrap up the show. But now I think it's been holding off a little longer than expected. So let's get in to the 15-1 player of the game and top performers of the game. Reminder, this series wraps up with the Rockies in the afternoon, and that, of course, will be a 3:10 start, I do believe. It'll be a 3:10 start on the East Coast tomorrow, Wednesday, with Kevin Gosman on the hill against Kyle Freeland on the hill for the Rockies. It'll be left-hander number 21, Kyle Freeland, on the hill against Kevin Gausman, right-hander number 34 for the Toronto Blue Jays. So it'll be right-handed pitcher versus left-handed pitcher for the series finale. I do want to question or let you in on a little thing that's going to be happening, but that'll have to wait till after we get to the player of the game and the top performers. One thing I will say is that the final first pitch will be thrown at 3:10 p.m. Eastern, 2:10 p.m. Central Time, 1:10 p.m. Mountain Time, and 12:10 p.m. Pacific, if the times do resemble the right time. They will be wrapping up the series tomorrow on August 6th, 2025, which is Wednesday. And then the Blue Jays are off until they play the LA Dodgers Thursday, which is sure to be a fun match on Friday, August 8th. But stay tuned to the end of the player of the game segment and top performers, because we're going to get right into them right now for a special announcement for all you sports for beginners listeners and on the ice and behind the benches listeners that love the Blue Jays just as much as host of the program, Scott McGregor, and of course, I, Thomas McGregor, love talking about them. All right, here we go. Time for the player of the game and time for the top performers of the game. Let's dive into it. Now, the player of the game is none other than the 3-for-6 Bo Bichette, but really, he is not alone, having just 2 homers on the day, 6 RBIs, 2 runs. He joins the likes of a double, a triple, an RBI, and 3 runs off of a 5-for-6 Ernie Clement and a 3-for-4 Nathan Lukes with 2 doubles, 2 walks, RBIs, and 3 runs. Those are your top performers of the game for the Toronto Blue Jays and, of course, the player of the game. But I think the Rockies do deserve a little bit of a player of the game. Maybe not the pitcher, but definitely someone who was able to drive in a run. And that, of course, is none other than, as we look here and see who the person is, that's none other than Tyler Freeman. Look, it wasn't the Rockies' night, okay? It wasn't the Rockies' night. But if we look back on that scoring that we talked about, and we have it here, of course, while we're talking about the player of the game, if you look at how he had played the game, he didn't have a single, I don't think he was charged with an error. It might not be him, but nonetheless, it was him and Tovar, Ezekiel Tovar, who would find a way to score a run. And of course, we should note that it was a single for him to drive in a run. Ezekiel Tovar with the run driven in by Tyler Freeman. And that's basically all she wrote on that one. That's basically all she wrote, guys. That's all she wrote. So was this a good game for the team, the Rockies? No. Was it a bad game? Definitely. Was it a terrible game? Debatable. 8 hits is not bad. They got a run. The error really cost them, though, the game. Maybe a little bit less error making. And this is probably going to be really, really tough to decide. And also, 25 hits is a lot to work with. While we're talking about 25 hits to 8, let's see just how many more hits the Rockies actually needed if they were to get back within a score of this game anyway. Let's see. So they had 8 hits. They would have needed 17 more hits, 18 hits to win the ball game, which would mean 26 hits to 25. And of course, they'd need runs, but you only have 1 run, so you would need more than just 1 run. And they lost by a score of 14 runs to 1. 15 to 1 the final score. Now, there's a lot to say about this game for the Blue Jays fans, a lot of good to say for the Blue Jays fans. But before we talk about the good for the Blue Jays fans to talk about, I just want to jump in on the Rockies and say that this season is pretty much over for them, but I'm holding out hope that while they may be 30-82 right now, there are still some pretty good series out there. Not many, but there's still some pretty good series out there that they can win. And if you blink an eye, they might have a shot at coming in late in the season. I still think they have a shot. Will they do it? Maybe, maybe not, but we'll see. All right, we're closing in on our final timeout where I will double down on the entire standings for the American League as it stands right now, as far as the wild cards are concerned. 30-82 is the record for the Rockies right now going into tonight's ball game against the Blue Jays. 66-48 is the record for the Blue Jays. Did the Tigers win? Did the Astros win? Will the Blue Jays come up victorious in game 2? Are we still tied with the Tigers, Blue Jays fans? The attendance record plus the standings update and my final thoughts and how both teams can benefit each other going into tonight's game, which is by the time you're probably watching this already completed, or it is probably still underway. The Blue Jays and the Rockies have played one game. Game 2 is tomorrow on the ice and behind the benches. And sports for beginners as recap as we prepare for game 3 of this series finale between the Rockies and the Blue Jays. Back at 30 seconds on the ice and behind the benches right after this. But sports for beginners, once we take the break on the ice and behind the benches, don't go anywhere just yet right after this word from Broadcast Map. But in 30 seconds after we're done with this message, we'll hear a word from our friends over at the studio that is hearing a word from Broadcast Map, that is our station on the ice and behind the benches. Back to wrap it up next in 30 seconds. All right, everybody. Well, Sports for Beginners is still here on Blue Jays Game Recap. I am your host, Thomas McGregor, and just before we send you into the 30-second timeout on Sports for Beginners, I'll make this real quick. And I'll probably touch on it after the 30-second word on the ice and behind the benches when we return. But it inherited that you all know that we will have road series for Blue Jays Game Recap. However, we have a special series on Sports for Beginners coming out for the remainder of this season. Our host, Scott McGregor, and maybe I will be on the show, will talk about the previous homestand against the Kansas City Royals, give you our thoughts on that series. We'll talk about the previous road trip between the Tigers and the Orioles, and we'll even cover our thoughts on the Rockies and the Blue Jays in a little show we like to call Weekly Blue Jays Recap, where each week when the Blue Jays are on an off day, we'll cover every series that the Blue Jays have played so far from where they were at the beginning of that off day. In this case, the next off day won't be until after they have played at home against the Chicago Cubs. They had played against the LA Dodgers, and they have played against the Texas Rangers and the Pittsburgh Pirates to begin another road trip. That will be, of course, August 21st in terms of games, but who knows? There might be a special LA Dodgers Blue Jay Weekly Recap talking about all 3 games on August the 11th. Stay tuned to the Sports for Beginners Facebook page or the end of one of the Dodger nightcap games on the ice and behind the benches and Sports for Beginners for details on what will happen on August the 11th. The first ever show of Blue Jays Game Recap Weekly Recap will be with you Thursday, August 7th. Maybe early Friday ahead of the Dodgers' first game of a 3-game series, which is a night owl game that throws the first pitch at 10:10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:10 p.m. Central Time, 8:10 p.m. Mountain Time, 7:10 p.m. Pacific. Sure to be a fun one. All right, back after a word from our friends from On the Ice and Behind the Benches on Sports for Beginners. And then both stations are wrapping it up. See you in 30 seconds. Looking for a good hockey podcast that covers your favorite hockey teams and mine? Check out On the Ice and Behind the Benches, where we chat about our favorite hockey teams from puck drop to the last play of the action. To learn more, Follow the On the Ice and Behind the Benches Facebook page. Search On the Ice and Behind the Benches. Well, everyone, Blue Jays game recap is in the rear view mirror for game one of this 3-game series. But you know what ain't in the rear view mirror right now? It's game number 2 of this 3-game series, which we'll have for you tomorrow ahead of game number 3 of this series with the Rockies and the Blue Jays. They'll wrap up their series, and then of course the Blue Jays will get ready for another course of night owl action between the LA Dodgers, wrapping up on Sunday in the afternoon, I believe, which is a getaway day for them as well. They'll be back on Tuesday as part of Looney Dogs night when they open up a 3-game series against the Chicago Cubs. And then, of course, Texas is in town for another City Connect night for all of us on Friday, with the series with the Cubs wrapping up on the 14th of August, Thursday. And that will be your birthday weekend when the series wraps up on August 14th. Of course, they will host the Texas Rangers on Friday, August 15th, another City Connect Friday night. And then, of course, 3:07 on Saturday is the first pitch of game 2 of that series. And then, of course, the Texas Rangers will wrap up their series with the Blue Jays on Sunday at 1:37 p.m. as part of Junior Jays Sunday. That will be a great series and homestand, I'm sure, Blue Jays fans to behold. The Pittsburgh Pirates will begin a road swing for the Blue Jays, which will be a 6-game road swing, just like the 6-game road swing we've had so far, with game 1 of this 6-game road swing already in the books and game 2 of the 6-game road swing underway. By the time you are listening to it, it will probably be completed, or by the time you are tuning in to at least maybe post-game of game 2 of this 3-game series between the Rockies and the Blue Jays, you're already ready for game 3 of this 6-game road swing, which will be before we get a night off. And then, of course, we begin game 4, 5, and 6 starting Friday in LA against the Dodgers. Should be a fun matchup there. Lots to talk about through there, and I was just given during our 30-second timeout on Sports for Beginners, as we are back here on the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners, to wrap up this show. I was just given a note that the official launch of Weekly Blue Jays Recap will be recorded, but will debut ahead of the Dodgers and the Blue Jays 3-game series, which begins Friday. So we'll have it for you recorded on, of course, Thursday, and then we'll have it for you this Friday on the platform of Sports for Beginners. Link will be provided for On the Ice and Behind the Benches listeners on the last game of this 3-game series, Wednesday, so you can check it out after you check out the 3-game series finale recap. All right, not much more to get to here, but we do have the standings update to get to. And before that, let's take a look at how the Rockies and the Blue Jays' attendance record went in the first game of a 3-game series set, in which the Blue Jays take it to the Rockies in Coors Field, in front of an attendance record of 22,075 fans. That is the record of attendance. The final score of the game, 15-1 in favor of the Blue Jays over the Rockies. How will this have benefited the other sides? Well, for the Rockies, I think it'll benefit them a little bit if they show some pushover in game 2. But you are down 1 game in this series, and the series is still up for grabs for now. Let's win a series, Blue Jays fans, but Rockies, let's try and even a series. Can you do it with your pitcher on the mound and Molina? Or will it be Jose Barrios and the Blue Jays taking the series and having a chance to bring out those brooms that spell the word I will not say, but is very possible. They can not only just win the series, they can also have that series cleared with all 3 games. Will that happen? We'll tune into game 3, and if you haven't been tuning into game 2 already, I'll tell you happen. But if you haven't tuned into it already and you're into this recap, much appreciated for you to hear our thoughts on the game. It wasn't your night tonight, Rockies. Will be your night tonight on Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. Hear us recap that for you ahead of the 3:10 matchup between Kevin Gosman and Kyle Freeland on the East Coast at the 3:10 start, 2:10 start Central Time, 1:10 start Mountain Time, 12:10 start Pacific Time. It will be a good game on Wednesday, August the 6th, 25. For now, let's get ready to eavesdrop on these teams, as unfortunately, we're only going to have time to go over the American League standings update. We're not going to go over the National League, but let's try and squeeze it in before we wrap up this show. We'll try and squeeze it in. Before we do, though, really quick, as we have already concluded the show with the attendance record, really quick, the next series that the Rockies will play right after they wrap up this series with the Blue Jays on Wednesday, they'll head on over for a 3-game, 6-game road swing against the Arizona Diamondbacks in Arizona. And of course, they'll take on the St. Louis Cardinals Monday and be back home against the Arizona Diamondbacks for what looks to be a 4-game series, and you dodge that with Dodger 4-game series. That will be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-game homestand, with the Dodgers series wrapping up the entire homestand on Thursday at 1:10 p.m. Mountain, and I believe that will be a 2:10 p.m. Central start, 3:10 p.m. Eastern time start, and a 12:10 p.m. Pacific start on Thursday, August 21st. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's keep an eye on the standings that has happened so far. Just a reminder that the American League leaders are your Toronto Blue Jays. They're currently in action with the Colorado Rockies at a current record amidst the other teams who have probably had games that have just gone final. The KC game has gone final with the Kansas City Royals. Just a reminder of what that record was going into that matchup. If we look here back on the standings, it looks to be the Red Sox pulled out a win, 8-5, which means their record was 63-51, with the Royals 56-57. But now with the game getting ready for, I believe, the series finale, which will be Wednesday. I don't know how many games they have with the Kansas City Royals, but I'm sure Boston Red Sox fans do know they are now 64-51, which means they're 2 games, 0.5 back of the Blue Jays, which are the leaders, and 3 games up on the wild card, which would leave the New York Yankees 5.5 games out of the division, and they are still currently in that wild card race, but they could be dropping. Speaking of 5.5 games back of the wild card race, that's the Tampa Bay Rays, who are currently just 11 games out of the division, and the Baltimore Orioles with 63 losses and 51 wins. They're just 15 games out of this division and 9.5 games out of the wild card. The records for the Yankees right now, 60-53, but I believe with a loss tonight, that record shifts. Let's just look at that record. That record will definitely shift, and it'll be 60-54 with 60-55 going into Wednesday, as they do lose a 2-0 shutout. We'll talk about the rest of those games on Game 2's recap. Stay tuned for that. The LA Angels, I believe, are still in play with the Tampa Bay Rays. I could be wrong. They might be done, but they are currently at the record, according to the standings, of 55 and 59. Tigers are at a record of 66-49. They have picked up, it looks like, an L to the Minnesota Twins, which are their team of conversation that they are against. It does appear to have a fact that they did lose the game. So the Blue Jays, with the win over the Rockies right now, might have taken over that division. But the Astros are not too far behind them, with their record heading into their match with the Miami Marlins now 64 and 50. The Blue Jays, with a win, would take over the division leaders, going to 67 and 48. If they do pick up this win, will they? We'll see. Right now, that score that we'll be recapping on the next Blue Jays game recap is 7-4. See how it happened next time on Blue Jays game recap. The Cleveland Guardians have finished their matchup with the New York Mets for tonight. They're now 58-55 with a 2-game winning streak and just 7 games back of the Tigers, 2 out of the wild card. 9.5 are the Royals, who are 56 and 58 right now, as they prepare for the next battle with the Boston Red Sox. The last battle, I think it's a 3-game series. They are 9.5 games out. A win against Boston would be huge, probably, in terms of their wild card hopes, as they are only 4.5 games out of the wild card, but 9.5 games out of the division. That could go to 8 games if they beat the Red Sox tomorrow on Wednesday. And the Minnesota Twins are against Detroit for, I believe, a series finale on Wednesday. I believe that's when that series will wrap up. I think it's 3 games. I could be wrong. It's 53 and 60 versus 66 and 49. They are now 12 games back of the Tigers, 7 games back of the wild card. And that is, of course, the Detroit Tigers' next matchup, August 6th, against the Minnesota Twins. The White Sox currently are 42 and 70 as of last night and are in battle against the Seattle Mariners. If you're joining us for that game, they're just through the 4th inning. It is 3-1 Mariners over the White Sox right now. And the last ones we'll look at are the 60 and 53 Mariners division of the AL West, which are the Texas Rangers 59-55. They were in action with the New York Yankees, but with that game having gone final, the records of a 2-0 shutout are 60 and 55 and 54-60, with 60 wins for the Yankees and 54 losses for the Yankees there. So that's the record right now, as the game has gone final. As they were approaching that game, it was 60-53 for the Yankees, and for the Rangers, it was 59-50. I guess it's now 60-55 going into Wednesday. The LA Angels, as mentioned, they're on with the Tampa Bay Rays right now. That game probably has not gone final just yet, but is probably on the verge of going final. And the score in the bottom of the 5th is 7-2 over the LA Angels. That standings update for you from the Angels side is 55-58 versus 55-59, which is the, of course, Tampa Bay Rays record, 55-59, versus, in the Angels case, 55-58. And the Athletics, 50 and 65, but they're on a winning streak and currently 11 games out of the wild card, only 14.5 games out of the division. All right, since we're talking about the Rockies, we'll only cover the Rockies list, as it does look like the Dodgers are going to pull away with a pretty good division winning series. 65 wins, 48 losses for them right now. currently in play with the St. Louis Cardinals and tied at 2 apiece in the top of the 3rd inning. The Pirates are taking on the Giants, who are in the Dodgers division at 57 and 57 in record. The Padres are against the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are 54-59. And Padres are 62 and 51. Arizona Diamondbacks with the only 3-game winning streak right now in that division, meaning they're only 8 games out of the wild card right now and 11 games out of the division. That could shrink with a win over the Padres tonight. Currently, the Giants are 8-1 finalists over the Pirates, so they have picked up a victory. It's tied 2-2. In both the Dodgers, Cardinals, and Padres and Diamondbacks game. In the minds of the spectators, it looks like the Rockies will go from 30 to 83, but that game is in the bottom of the 7th right now, and we'll have the answers for you on the next edition of Blue Jays Game Recap, probably coming up your way after you tune into this one. So the Blue Jays take it 15-1 in game 1 of this series. What will the final standings be heading in to, of course, the game of the series, which is the 3rd and final game of the series? Find out on next Blue Jays game recap, which will be game 2 of this series. We'll have it for you immediately following Rockies and Jays 3:10 start, which will be the bullpen of Blue Jays and Rockies in Kevin Gausman and Kyle Freeland. That does it for us here on Blue Jays Game Recap. We'll have Game 2's recap for you ahead of the series finale between Kevin Gausman and Kyle Freeland. It is the Rockies and the Blue Jays. The series continues next time on Blue Jays Game Recap on the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners podcast. My name is Thomas McGregor. See you all after Rockies and Blue Jays Game 2 of this series goes final. Enjoy your night, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast 8231 at gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time. Thank you so much for listening to the On the Ice and Behind the Benches post-game show on the Sports for Beginners podcast feed. Remember, everybody on the Ice and Behind the Benches, to join Thomas every Tuesday for weekly episodes of your favorite ice content, from the drop of the puck to hitting the showers. We thank you for joining us.